Dimp Digital presents Idle Game Chat.
Cool.
So Logan, here we are, back with the first, what I would call regular episode of 2024, i.e. you're back from fucking about with God knows where. Adcock pulled in last week to do some sort of Gaming's Most Wanted standalone for Q1. Might do that for Q2, Q3, Q4, get different people on, so you may get another break at some point, or you may be asked to come on if there's anything interesting coming up in that quarter. But you're back. I'm still here. We've got another long year ahead of us. This could be the final year, because that 10-year anniversary is coming up. And like I said, the romantic in me is like, you just stop on that date and that's it, and don't say a word. Maybe
like Gervais.
Well,
Don't let things go on longer than it needs to.
No.
Move on to the next thing. That's what his
his
favourite thing to do is.
It's a warning to the audience to pull fingers out of arses. Put hand in
Someone
pocket.
say it's a threat. Blackmail.
Call it what you fucking like. Pull fingers out of arses or I'll walk away. Nah. Sorry, I've done that before and then immediately within 6 months been like, feel like waffling.
Get an itch.
Yeah.
There's an optimum. It's like anything. Like, if you do something too much, it becomes a burden at times. Like this work, you go, right, well, this is a burden. But you take a month off and you go, I need some sort of stimulation. And it's trying to find the right balance between the stimulation and it being interesting versus the effort and it becoming a chore. It's difficult with a lot of things to find the balance there, but
the chore for me is chasing around people. That's the chore for me. But you've largely eliminated that for most sessions, being that you're normally around. But when it used to be Adkins or whoever, it could be anyone actually, that was massively draining, just trying to get things in line.
Yeah, I can do perhaps a Thursday at 9:25 in 3 weeks' time.
And then you get to 9:26, he's like, can't do it now. That's not saying Adkins in particular, it could be anyone. No. Everyone's done that at some point. I've even done it, I forgot about that. And then thought I can't be fucked now because I haven't been in the mood. Yeah. But that was the difficult thing back in the day. It was just draining trying to schedule it all. That's largely gone, so it makes this easier to some extent. But then you could argue there's less effort put in than ever now. I mean, half this workflow setup is automated. I don't have to do a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, doesn't it? As I say, for me, it's easy because I just rock up. You go, what time? I'll make it happen. I'll go this. You go, yeah. And then it basically happens. So it's not a huge amount of effort on my behalf.
And like today, it was like the normal time wasn't available. Then the second time wasn't available, but the third time was. And it just wasn't a hassle, was it? Whereas that's terminal in most people's schedule. It's like, well, I see. That's your window gone for 2 weeks. And you think, what's going on there? Yeah,
done. That's all you get. But still ain't always easy. As you say, you forget about stuff. Like I meant to text you yesterday saying, got to drop that kid off this morning because Jodie was going for a walk after dropping him off. So I had to do that and come back. And then for some reason, we've got no cat food. I don't know why that's happening. So I've then got to go and sort that out. So as you say, usual slot gets eroded. But it's the way it goes. Fortunately, between you and I, we both seem relatively calm about being able to find another slot relatively quickly.
This
ain't always the case.
No, it's not, but it is what it is. This running out of things irritates me around the house.
Yeah.
I'm of the mind as you buy 2 of everything. Toilet roll, kitchen roll, cat food, dog food, diet, whatever it is, you buy 2 of everything. When one of them runs out, you replenish the one that's just gone, and then you cycle in the one you had spare, and then you never run out. All you've got to do is just commit to that once, and it's done. I know with food and stuff, it can go off, but the way the animals get through stuff, it's no hassle. But I've come back plenty of times, there's been no kitchen roll.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, how... Do I have to take over? Do I have to take another stressful burden on me? Is that my job now? What's going on here?
It doesn't. I'm like, the cats are going to eat it. So you're better off buying more, if anything, because you're building up a little bit of a buffer, as you say. So yeah, I went out this morning and bought like a bumper fucking pouch box thing. I went, all right, that's that sorted for 2 weeks.
Luckily, that's nice and cheap, all that animal food.
Such a joke, honestly. It really is a joke. I mean, I don't know how they get away with it. It's like, the problem is, as usual, and I have this argument for a lot of people, as soon as you start them on that expensive stuff, they ain't going back because they know what. It's like if you get given a fillet steak and that's the first thing you'd be introduced to, you go, why am I eating chicken dippers?
Yeah.
Like, so that's where you get caught out with it. And
it can cost you as well because they get used to that food and then you get the lower quality stuff in. They go, oh, I've got gut ache. And it's a trip down the vets and it's cost you more than what, a year's worth of the saving would have been. So you just, it's not, there's no way of getting around it, but.
Problem. Dimp Digital, the Life Problems podcast.
It's a new theme for 2024. Anyway, this is your first appearance, I believe, since formally becoming FGL Champion. Now, he was on the draft show, obviously, as a bonus stage, but the first time you're on the regular episode. Does it feel any different? People that haven't had that experience of winning a title of any sort in their life will probably be wondering what it's like. And this is the big one as far as the fantasy gaming is concerned.
No, I've had a good run of it of late. I don't know whether that's more luck than judgment or whatever it is. I've always kind of been on the cusp, and it's just frustrated me slightly that I haven't kind of ticked that off. I feel like Pep at City, when there's an expectation, you just go, look, I want to get that ticked off and get the pressure.
He should have won that Champions League much earlier. I mean, he got it eventually, but that should have been done years ago. Yeah,
it's a bit like that. So, as I say, I had a couple of... I wouldn't say like
compares himself to Pep. That's a bit arrogant, isn't it?
Well, it is arrogant. Yeah, I'm absolutely not Pep. It's more
Ange.
It's more Ange. Yeah, definitely more Ange. I'm certainly not a student of the game, the gaming world. But
who is Ten Hag out of all these characters that?
Paul, I would say, is Ten Hag. Well, they're highly thought of, but under deliver.
Highly thought of in some circles, most Dutch football.
Circles.
And that was it.
Yeah. And Biff's like a Daesh, where like consistently does the job, but never will get the big job.
Well, Biff will be coming up later on as we talk through one of the games that's already scored. But let's close down that little intro box. This is Idle Game Chat, Dimp Digital's flagship video game podcast. We're with you most weeks, and this is a bank holiday. If you want to support this, you can. It's patreon.com/Dimp Digital, which is the umbrella. It's not a company, but the umbrella brand, I guess. And this is grassroots and completely independent. No affiliation, no budget, just time. And I would say intelligence being touted, but some of the garbage that comes out of both of our mouths is questionable at times. But it's hard work.
Yes.
When you're asked to speak every week or so for an hour, you will just eventually spout bollocks. Everyone does. You catch people out. And then you go, oh, you said that. And you go, did I? And you listen back, you go, I did. And I go, I didn't mean that. Someone's just trying to...
The way that everything you can say is 100% accurate, true and consistent. You will drop the ball.
That's the trouble with the internet, because every answer is out there, so you can always be checked for any inaccuracy. The smallest minute detail can pull apart an entire cohesive argument that's actually filled with logic, but you get the date wrong. It's like, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And you think, wow.
Get pulled up on the minutiae, even though the majority of it is correct. They'll go, well, because you said that bit wrong, the rest of it is therefore invalidated. You go, well, all right.
Bit harsh at times, but that's the way it works. I'm not going to complain. Anyway, Idle Game Chat on your favourite podcast app. There's a YouTube version of this if you're listening, where you can actually see our little heads. That's been going a little while, actually. It's easier than I thought once we got Discord kind of installed and OBS set up and got all the overlays done. But find us there, give us a subscribe, drop us a review if you want. I mean, I've never left a review on any podcast ever.
I'm sick of reviewing stuff. Ain't you?
Well, doing
everything
enough of these
I do
bloody
now.
games.
Well, no, not even that. I don't even mean it like that. I mean, everything in life now wants me to review it and tell them how well they did.
Every team score, how did we do? 5 stars. What was the connection like? I was like, what does it matter? Check your fucking diagnostics.
Logs.
Look. You tell me if it was up to snuff.
I did the other day, and it really wound me up. I think I bought something randomly from somewhere. Like, it's completely insignificant. They went, tell us how we did. I bought a washing machine a couple of months ago. Tell us how we did. Yeah. Well, I got the washing machine. Yeah. Like, I don't know what people expect. Like, you just want all this feedback all the time. Everyone wants fucking 360, 365, 360-degree feedback all the time. Do what I've asked. I'll let you know if you fuck it up. I'll complain. If I don't complain, it's tick the box.
I went to the snooker last year at the Masters in Alexandra Palace, and afterwards they sent me a survey saying, how was it? And it's fine, but the seats are so uncomfortable and it's so crammed in there. Yeah. And so I've put that in the feedback form. Did they reduce the attendance number of seats this year? Did they bollocks? Same amount, same problem. I know I'm one person, but no one was comfortable in that arena. Other than the fucking rich fucks that sat in there's these sofas you can get where you can just fucking sit there and lounge. Yeah. Get a great view of the table, you get a bar service.
How much do you reckon that costs?
It's about 500 quid. But
Christ.
It might even be more than that, in fact. There's like a bar as well up in like one of the balconies. And that was quite expensive, but I don't know, sometimes I think I might as well just fucking do it. Just deal with the consequences instead of dealing with the scrubs. Try and pretend that I'm something I'm not.
Sick of that. You've ever been to the theatre? Like,
whatever.
Even say, like, say the Cliffs or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I must admit, the worst place for this is the West End. Like, if you go to a West End theatre, like the Lyceum or something like that,
some old fucking tutor.
It's genuinely the worst room. I have better leg room and more space on an aeroplane. Like, if I went Ryanair, like, it's that bad. And I'm like, how am I being charged £100 or whatever for a ticket to sit like this for 3 hours? It's honestly, it's diabolical. Yeah, it is. It's like, you get this perspective of the theatre being like a more sort of like classy or middle class thing to do. And you go there and you go, I felt like a fucking pauper. Yeah. It was diabolical. And then you get raided up the arse for a bag of fucking minstrels or whatever.
Don't get a water. That'll be a fiver.
Yeah, and this is what I mean. They go, well, yeah, thank you. Mad, honestly. Anyway.
Yeah. That's one reason why I almost exclusively don't go to the Odeon anymore, because those seats in that fucking Odeon in Southend are awful. I'd rather drive to Basildon, which I never thought I'd say in my whole life. And go to that Cineworld. Well, I thought they were going under. What happened?
Didn't they get saved somehow? I don't really know what happened.
Everyone's going under. Wilco's gone. Taken off the high streets.
You don't adapt, you die.
No, if you don't become a pound shop, then you literally die out on these high streets. They need resetting.
You can't be a jack of all, master of none anymore. WH Smith's gone. Woolworths gone.
Yeah.
Wilco gone. You got to have a specialism these days to survive. Well, yeah, niche. Or like, you can expand a bit, but it's like, what are you going to go to Wilco's for that you can't get on Amazon or in another shop that you're already going to? It's costly. I did like Wilco's though, I have to say.
Yeah, good to have wandered around there. You find some cheap stuff in there, and gone now. So more derelict buildings around Southend to be dealing with. So that high street going down the pan. Anyway, let's get into the first bit. No surprise where we're going to start. It's the Fantasy Gaming League update. So already we've got a game score, and there's going to be a few more coming thick and fast over the next few editions. Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. So this is on your team. Biff supplied you with this particular one. It's in his Grand Prix team. It has to be. There has to be a bit of consistency across the two teams now. And as we record this, it's currently sitting on an 87, at least when I checked it earlier, which is a great score to be getting in there. I do want to read off a few quotes that when you were given this game during the draft, this is what you had to say about it. So I said, Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown via Biff. Yeah. You went, this is what I feared he might do. Yeah. It was 21st on my list. Yeah. Then you went on to say, if I get an 80 out of this, I'll be happy. Yeah. I feared he would put this one higher up on his list. So you clearly weren't... Yeah. The word fear has come up twice in those two
I do statements. Fear him, yeah. Right. So,
and last one.
Oh, go on. Yeah.
I've stuck behind Biff, and he's done that to me.
Yeah.
And then just finally, Paper had to pipe in, obviously. He thought this was hilarious when Prince of Persia was on your team and not his. 26th on my list out of 30, all proud. Yeah. Biff, a broken clock is right twice a day, and twice a day was last season for him.
So... I think there's an element of correctness.
This is what I was saying earlier about what you say on podcasts, is that it'll unravel.
I stand by what I said. I absolutely stand by what I said. And when you look through the reviews on here, there's one that have got it right, and that is PC Gamer.
Yeah.
72 out of 100. Right? That is what we're talking about.
Is that what you were
game.
thinking when that was the sort of area you're thinking that's just low to mid 70s?
Look, it looked okay. And again, this is where we go back to perspective on fantasy gaming league scores. It's a 72 is no disgrace. A 7 out of 10 game is it's a good game. But what you're always looking for in the FGL is something a little bit niche, something like fanboy, something, and what people like. I know what Biff's thinking with this. He wants a Prince of Persia game, right?
Yeah.
So when he picks some of these picks sometimes, like he did with Assassin's Creed beforehand and things like that, like there's hopium in it, right? He picks it because he wants it to be good and he thinks it will be good because that's what he kind of wants, right? And he was the same with the Prince of Persia stuff. He's openly wanted for a long time a new Prince of Persia game. And I was doubtful with this, whether this would appease the fans and the critics of what they wanted. Look, credit where credit's due. It has done. I'm happy with an 87 off this. I'll absolutely take it. And, if there was something in it that Biff saw that I didn't, credit where credit's due. But I don't think if he's sitting there saying he thought this was going to get an 86, 87, nah. And I don't think anyone thought it was going to, right? So it's a bit like Adkins last year with Baldur's Gate, where all of a sudden comes out, all of a sudden gets the fucking alpha or beta score wiped out and a new one put in, and it's a 96. And he goes, look how clever I am. You go, well, look, yeah, you've picked a good game. Fair enough. Did you expect it to be a 96? Probably not. Did you luck out with that score getting wiped? And yes, so the stars aligned. And there's a little bit of that's happened with this, I think. But look, it's a good score and I'll take it. I'm not going to moan about it.
No, I mean, the ultimate egg on face is Paper, because he's now 87 points down and he insulted it.
But Paper's list, I was listening, when every game that was rattled off that was at the top of everyone else's list didn't somehow make it to the top of James's.
No.
So he's either an absolute genius or
I don't know about that.
or the opposite. So I don't know. Obviously, it will all come out in the wash anyway. But it's turned out to be better than I thought it would. And look, the simple fact is as well, PC Gamer are the outlier.
Yeah.
They're the one that's put on a 72. All the other ones are sort of a lot higher than that. So some might argue it's actually dragging down the average for me.
It is. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter to you because you've profited from something that you're probably preparing for your 80 bests and you've got something that's close to 90. So you're laughing. Biff's just wants his credit, I think. He just wants the pat on the back. He ain't getting it. He's like a Sancho. He needs an arm round. He doesn't need an aggressive boss forcing him out. He needs someone to go, look, you're doing a good job. Don't worry about it. Don't badmouth me in the public, though, because I'll get on you. Yeah. And you'll be gone. So...
Well, look, for every one of these, he's had an ace combat. So this is what I mean. It's not like he's got this perfect track record. He has got better, and this is why I pick him, because largely
improvement.
He's improved, and he's always on the cusp, and that's why I said he's Daesh. He's there doing a solid job, and will never get the recognition that he wants. But I think he would have to admit an 86, 87 is probably higher than... I mean, I don't know, maybe he genuinely thought that. Fair enough. But I don't think anyone else really was looking at that. Maybe going, upper echelons of... Because I think we said at the start of the year it's going to be a tough year. So I'll absolutely take an 87 off something like this. It's probably going to be one of the top 10, 15 highest scoring games of the year, I'd expect.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be up there. And what will happen next is I think the Last of Us Remastered, or Last of Us Part 2 Remastered will be coming shortly as well. So you'll get off to that strong start, which you did last season, and then poor old Parky never recovered. But here's what some of the reviewers think of Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, and why it's sitting on 87 at the moment. We've got Stephen Mills from Destructoid. The glimpses of tedium definitely hamper the experience, but few games have managed to get me so excited just for reaching the next boss. If you're a fan of Metroidvania-style games, or even a fan of fast-paced combat with a focus on boss fights, you'll love this iteration of the Prince. 8.5 out of 10. So he's laying down the gauntlet there. you like your fast-paced combat and bosses, you're in, or if you like your Metroidvanias, you're in. If you don't like either of those, you're out. Adrian Burrows from the sixth. Adrian Durham from the Sixth Act. Is he still knocking about?
I don't know. I'm not.
Was he on that TalkSport or not? Or is he?
I don't listen to it. Since I've stopped driving to work, I didn't have that on. But I don't think he is, because I think they changed the drive to be some other fella. I think it's like Cundy and someone else now.
Is Cundy still there after he?
Yeah.
Well, not. I'm saying he should have gone, but normally that's it. They can't.
They've got O'Hara, Cundy. I can't remember the other chap. He had long hair. He shaved it off. I think he's gone long again. Can't remember. But anyway, yeah, Durham doesn't appear to be. He's dropped off. I haven't even seen a retweet. I've seen nothing from him in years, and it's been absolutely gorgeous.
Poor old AD. Anyway, the Sixth Axis. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is one of the finest Metroidvanias I've ever played, and a fantastic way to start 2024. Thrilling and kinetic platforming, thumping combat, and a vast game world that demands exploration and makes it a joy to do. It's time to kick nostalgia firmly in the unmentionables. This is the best Prince of Persia ever. 9 out of 10. I mean, look, the last good Prince of Persia game was probably over a decade ago now, so once you go further back than 15 years, the games that were made then are obviously going to be aged of a certain level. So to say it's the best ever isn't that big a statement, but still, this is the general crowd. People are positive on this. So if you're into your Metroidvanias and your bosses and whatnot, so this is something to consider, I think. Not one for me, especially right now. It'll be tough to squeeze this one in, if I'm honest. Metroidvania games I'm very particular about. I like Metroid, 2D Metroid specifically.
What is that style of game then? How do you describe that?
Everything's a fucking Metroidvania these days. Essentially, so it's Metroid and Castlevania slapped together, basically. Usually the kind of, I guess the hallmarks of it are like big interconnected maps that you can travel across, that you can explore, and most of it actually when you first start is inaccessible at the beginning, and the way in which you explore more areas is to acquire special items or abilities or weapons or some sort of knowledge to get past. And as you kind of build your repertoire either by items or knowledge, you can then start expanding out across the map and exploring it more. So you essentially hit a lot of dead ends during your initial kind of run through, and then you'll go back to those areas, explore them, and find new things. And they have to be quite carefully designed, because the flow of where the player can and can't go has to be quite meticulously set in stone, so you don't break the game and get to places you're not supposed to get to before you've got all the right abilities and whatnot. So yeah, it's
you said the right thing, because
right.
I put it into Google. I thought I'll see if there's a way to wrap that up, and it says Metroidvania is a subgenre of action adventure games and or platformers focused on guided non-linearity and utility gated exploration and progression.
There you go. Yeah.
So you've said exactly that without that many wordy.
Yeah. What many games do these days, something like Star Wars Jedi Survivor, that has Metroidvania elements in that you can't access parts of that map until you've unlocked a new lightsaber or an ability, and that's actually there in Fallen Order as well. So whilst they're not considered Metroidvania games, that's not the core component of it, a lot of games borrow that part, that kind of gating off, and so you can come back and do stuff. So it's one of those genres that typically over time has been stolen off mostly, and a lot of games use it in their elements. But
I was going to say, it feels like that's a relatively, not like a core element of the gameplay, but it's relatively common in I wouldn't say a lot of games, but even in like Spider-Man and stuff, there's certain things you can't do without certain abilities, and it gates you off to, even though it's an open world and things, it will go, no, you need to do this quest or do that. It's
the classic one. It's this thieving, from different genres is RPG. Like everything's an RPG now. Like you can put stat points, like you said, Spider-Man. You can put stat points into him and choose your path. Ultimately, you can get all the points in that, so it's not quite. But it used to have very separate delineation between genres where you wouldn't get that in an action game, for example. You wouldn't get that in an open world game like GTA. Would just be the open world action game. Whereas as time's gone on with that, you can even increase your stats. San Andreas famously introduced, you could work out and increase your strength and your switch. And all this stuff sort of blends in, which is good because not everything's got to be in its fucking separate silos. Borrow the best bits, and if it works for your game, put it in. But The Lost Crown, Prince of Persia. Any interest from you? I mean, this doesn't really seem like up your alley, but I mean, as a Metroidvania, like a pure one, like this sound appealing. Just give it a go maybe one day.
I think if it dropped onto like Game Pass, I'd be intrigued in sort of just giving it a go, because sometimes it looks like it's like a 2.5D sort of game, isn't it? So it looks sort of semi-interesting. Whether it would sort of pique my interest to the point where I'd want to complete it, I don't know. But sometimes these things do. Like, I'd probably say I've played some games over the past few years. Wouldn't typically say are my sort of bag, but I've sort of played them and completed them and enjoyed playing something different. So, I don't ever rule anything out. No. Basically, the only thing I do rule out is horror and things like that. I'm just like, they ain't gonna be played.
Not gonna get you playing Alan Wake 2 then?
No, absolutely not. Despite the good offer that was available over Christmas, but don't rule it out. But it won't be something that I'm immediately going to sort of pick up and play.
What I will say is on Game Pass, there's probably about 30 Metroidvanias on there now. That are maybe not as good as this, but there'd be ones that are close, I would imagine. Like there's some really. Like if you ever wanted to try one, you could probably just put that into the tagging system they've got.
I think they might have like a class or a genre.
If they haven't, they're stupid. They should have. It should be something you can just add in. It'll pop them in. But well, there you go. You're off to a good start. 87, and Biff will be laughing at that for his Grand Prix team. He's off to a good start as well. Not really much to discuss in terms of movement in the tables because it's the first game of the year that's been scored. So can he complain? And Biff, maybe he'll get his credit at the end of the year if he can produce another 87 for you. Maybe that'll be the pat on the back. And
I can't remember good lad. What his other game is for me.
I've got it here. It is... Oh, wrong slide. Rise of the Ronin. Or the Ronin.
Yeah. I think that was on my list. I think that's got potential, but I think there's some question marks over it. So, be interesting to see whether he can pull out another 85 plus on that.
I mean, it could happen because I still think this looks so much like Neo and Neo 2. I think that's in that spirit that if they just get the base right, they'll get that as a minimum. If they do try and broach out to more casuals like me, that's where they could fall in some trappings, because then the purists will be like, well, it's too easy, so it doesn't tick our box. And then I might say, well, now you've reached out to me, I want all this casual shit, and it ain't there. And I'm like, well, not good for me either. So that would be my concern with it. If they stick to one of the lanes and go for it, it's a bit more of a casual game than I anticipated, that could work. Or if it's like Neo, where it's pretty hard, and those that like the Soulsborne style games and the imitations of that, I think they'll do well. But
always a concern, though, isn't it? I think we discussed this a little while ago around the imitation Soulsborne games. They can be a bit hit and miss.
Yeah, on the review side, certainly. Yeah. Even like Lies of P, that got like low 80s, which is good. But then I think the Lords of the Fallen, that was pretty poor. There's been a number of those that haven't stuck, but Team Ninja and Koei Tecmo and Neo did. That was one of the highest scoring ones, and many say harder than what From Software had been producing. So depends what they're going to go for. But I've got my eye on that just as a little sneaker, maybe, if it doesn't turn out to be fucking ridiculously hard. But we'll see. Biff could, in theory, get you an 87 and a 90 potentially, and then
well, if he does, I will sit here and go,
good lad.
Can he argue with that? Good lad, pat him on the back.
Absolutely. Right. The DICE Awards. I've got the nominees out, okay? I've taken this from VGC, this little blurb. The Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences has announced the nominees for next month's 27th Annual DICE Awards. A total of 56 games released last year have been nominated across 23 award categories, with the full list republished below. We're not going to read the full list. Spider-Man 2 is in the running for 9 awards, ahead of Alan Wake 2 with 8 awards, Baldur's Gate with 7, and Cocoon with 6. All 4 titles are up for the coveted Game of the Year prize alongside The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which received 5 nominations. The peer-juried awards show will take place on the 15th of February at the Aria Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada. And here's just a quick rundown of those 5 games, Game of the Year. Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Cocoon, Marvel Spider-Man 2, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. A very solid list there. Cocoon will be surprising people, but I know a lot of people enjoyed it. I played through it, thought it was pretty good. Don't want to talk about that necessarily. I wanted to mention it though, because I feel like it's important that the DICE Awards and GDC get mentioned, because let's talk about these gaming awards shows. We had the Game Awards last year for 2023. I mean, it's roundly criticised every year for various things. My big one is just the obvious. You're putting that awards show before the year's ended. Yeah. So you're not even trying. I know it's like 1 or 2 games that miss out, but I really want Nintendo to put like the best Zelda ever on like December the 15th just to fuck that entire thing up. Because I bet you they would bend the knee for that, and then eventually they'll just do it in January. Maybe, well, I probably wouldn't, but anyway, that annoys me. But this past year's one, criticisms come from rushing the developers off during their speeches, so they'll be up there and then they'll start playing the music after about 30 seconds, and there was this little sign up, that you couldn't see from the TV, but they could see, saying please wrap it up, that would come up behind the crowd. I think they were all giving guidance beforehand to say you've only got 30 seconds to do your kind of acceptance speech, which is fine, but they spent a lot of time kind of doing other stuff like showing off Kojima's game. He was up there for about 8 minutes talking about just the title of a game, and Jordan Peele came out and said, I'm collaborating with this, so this is all this big look, this is going to be a great sort of collaboration. We got a skit with the Muppets in there for about 5 minutes, and then the high profile kind of Hollywood people they'd got in to present the awards rambled, but they got more than 30 seconds just to do a little comedy set at the start. So all this kind of annoyed people, because they're like supposed to be a celebration of the games industry and the makers and whatnot, and the fact that this is also a marketing for new and upcoming games, that takes up a lot of time as well. In fact, it's the majority of the show. The general feeling is that this particular award show has the awards kind of down the totem pole in terms of priority. It's the name of the show, but in terms of the priority of what's shown, it clearly isn't. And not to mention that everyone moans about who ends up getting nominated and who doesn't. That's just a standard kind of thing that seems to happen. Now, there are alternatives. We just mentioned DICE. You've got the GDC Choice Awards, which will be coming up soon as well. But these are kind of what people claim to have been asking for, which is where I get a bit puzzled. These shows are designed just to celebrate the previous year's highs. Now, I've sat through and watched these shows before, GDC and DICE, and look, they're dry as fuck. They are what you would expect. Not very entertaining, but this clamouring for what people claim for, which is they want to give the devs the platform to speak and pat themselves on the back. That's what this does. But it's not very exciting. It's not very newsworthy. There's a load of people coming up there thanking their families and thanking the fans, and then sitting back down generally. And I guess my question or my problem with this entire generalisation and conversation that's been going on is that everyone's asking for the Game Awards to change and do what it's not designed to do. Like, they want it to be a square peg in a round hole. It's clear by now that this is designed for maximum exposure. You get Hollywood names in to do the, some of the award presenting. You do lots of marketing to get eyeballs. It's a glorified game showcase at the end of the day, which they know people will tune in for. It's not designed for the purity of the celebration of the video games of that previous year. And let's be frank, if that Game Awards didn't have all that fluff, didn't have the celebrities, didn't have the pomp, the circumstance, then the vast majority of these moaning bastards wouldn't tune in or talk about it, would they? Because it ain't exciting. It ain't gonna drive any engagement. It's not gonna drive any clicks. It's not. there's nothing to say. There's nothing new to talk about because every time people talk about the Game Awards post, it's always about, what new games were shown off. It's never, well done, Baldur's Gate, for winning Game of the Year. They might do that for 5 minutes, but you look at any podcast that they review it for, they spend, us included, the vast majority of time talking about all the new stuff. Doesn't drive any interest, does it? Outside of enthusiast circle.
Yeah, but I think that's the same for a lot of things. Like, once something's done, everyone wants to move on to the next thing. And see what else is coming out and look at the new shiny thing. Like, I think that's just human nature.
Yep.
So I don't know how you get away from that. I think the biggest problem is there's too many awards. Like, there is, though, isn't there?
Do you mean too many just like is in different award shows, or you mean the Game Awards has 50 awards that they're giving out on their one show and that's too many? And it's not 50, it's a lot. But we could set up our own award show.
Like, there should be, because you got about 2 that end at the end of last year. I don't know all the fucking different names of it. And then you've got another one this year. And it's just like, and whenever you go through it, it's the same with any award show though. Like the Mobos and the whatever it is for the other, or the music industry, and you've got the TV one, you've got the Golden Globes, you've got the BAFTAs, you've got
BAFTAs,
you've got all this. You've got all this stuff going on all the time. Who tunes into that anymore? Like, they go, it's Oscar winning. You go, great, I'll watch it. Like, but you don't care. You're not sitting there hoping that a film gets it and sort of tuning into it on a Saturday night.
No, I agree.
And I think it's weird as well in the games industry that they use it as an opportunity to almost market new stuff. Because can you imagine watching the Golden Globes and there was like a 15-minute section on a new film? You'd be like,
what's going on here?
What's this doing here? Why is that here? Yeah, I find it a bit of a weird thing to do.
But that's why I think people should look at the Game Awards and you know what it is. It's not the Game Awards. It's the Showcase Awards that have awards attached to it. So it's the showcase of new games and upcoming games. I can't
bear any of it. I can't bear any of the awards. I can't bear any of the showcases.
3.5 hours.
It's all full of bullshit. And every time you come out at the end of it with relatively little insight or information as to what the new thing is. And it's always like this big, like, glamorized, like, keynote speech. Is it like all even... You can pull this back to all the Apple keynote stuff, Google, Samsung,
CES.
All this shit is just marketing toss that I don't need to listen to. And it's like, I feel like there's a place for all the marketing stuff, and that's all within the Nintendo Directs and all this sort of stuff. Like, does that fine? Like, why do you need it in an award ceremony? Like, it's
because
just
people won't fucking tune in otherwise.
They're not going to, but it doesn't have to be people tuning in. Like, if I was to get an industry award for my efforts in my field at work, my focus wouldn't be on making sure there was a load of people watching that. Like, I would feel like I've done it for me. Yeah. Like, so why does the industry not do it for developers, producers, and those sort of guys? Like, that it means a lot to them because their blood and tears and sweat have gone into it. So I find it a strange thing to do.
That's what DICE and GDC are, though. But what it is that people that are watching, like us on the outside potentially, are complaining that the Game Awards isn't that pure celebration. My argument is you wouldn't fucking watch it if it was that, because you don't.
Yeah,
you don't even talk about DICE and GDC. You're talking bollocks. You don't want what you're asking for.
Yeah.
If that didn't have the fucking Hellblade 2 fucking gameplay showcase, you'd have gone, that's a shit show if it was just them going up there talking. Yeah. And you're probably right, it's not very entertaining, but it's not for us.
No, exactly, yeah. You are bang on, yeah. It's exactly that. It's not for entertainment purposes, it's not for the viewer, it's for recognising industry achievement.
And if you truly care about that, then cover the DICE and GDC in the same amount of vein and, effort.
It's money. It'll be money because they've been paid to do that. And, all of the celebrities they get on will have wanted a certain amount of time for their own publicity and for their own words and that kind of stuff. And they sort of go, oh, okay then. And then all these developers that are not any real sort of big name or noteworthy will just go 30 seconds and get off. Like, it's yeah, it just becomes this huge sort of like marketing and PR publicity circus that is just not fair. You know, when you look at a game like Baldur's Gate 3 that's absolutely blown everyone out of the water and everyone's going, this is the new way to be doing this.
Yeah.
Like, and then not getting their 5 minutes of recognition or whatever is, you know, I think that's the shame, is that, you know, they've obviously put a lot of time and effort into producing something they're rightly proud of. Don't get me wrong, it's done well commercially as well. They haven't done it for charity, but they've produced a great product and they should be commended for it. And, you know, I think it's a shame that the place that they do that is then shrouded in money, marketing and PR.
Well, that's why I don't think people should be so annoyed about it. Like, they're going to get that. If they win at DICE or GDC, they're more than likely going to get that opportunity to do that full speech in front of their peers, voted on by people who have been helping make and develop the game. So it means more than the media people that are doing the Game Awards. Yeah. So what is it? If we all accept the Game Awards is a marketing show first, then what the hell does it matter that the speeches and that are cut off? Like, I understand you want to improve it in some way, but it's just never going to be what people want it to be. And you already have that alternative there. You've got two of them, and we could argue we've got three of them because we sometimes cover the BAFTAs, and that's generally not built around marketing or, you know, celebrity appearances and things like that. It's done there just to recognise people. This pure kind of celebration is already out there for people, but they just choose to not look at it or cover it because it simply isn't as exciting. It's not as sexy as the Game Awards because it won't have anything interesting to say other than, oh, Baldur's Gate 3 won, and they spoke for 5 minutes about, you know, the development cycle, and that was it. Not, oh, they've released a new fucking video game that's fucking dropped there, and then the finals trailer was awesome. Like, they have to be separate. I don't know why people take the Game Awards so seriously and then complain about it not being pure when there's two sitting there that have been doing it for, the 27th year they've done the DICE Awards. It's like, cover that if you care that much. If you really care about the purity, spend 1 hour of your show, your podcast, whatever your voice is, talking about that. But you won't, because it's boring to us. It's as simple as that. Anyway.
Really got his back up.
Yeah.
Passion.
What would be the optimal awards show? Who should vote on these things? We're going to build one. Because I don't think there should be any media involvement. It should be peer voted. So it should be what DICE and GDC do. You know, it's people from the industry that build the games and invited from each company, perhaps. But I don't like this idea of these fucking low-lives media getting involved because we read some of the garbage that comes out of their gobs every week on these games, and you think, well, if they're having a say, then I might as well have a say at this rate.
Yeah, no, you're exactly. Their opinion is no more valid than yours, really.
In the grand scheme of things, they're always wrong compared to me. I know that.
So yeah, I mean, I think if I had done something, if I produced a product, you know, you want your audience to like it, but more so than that, if it doesn't resonate with the audience for some reason, but everyone in your industry is going, that's really great, it's just unfortunate, like, for whatever reason, I think that means more, right? Because they're the ones that
they've got a deeper understanding of the craft. That's why the Oscars. Exactly. It annoys me when it really bugs me when I see an article from IGN going, the Game Awards 2023 upcoming, the games industry's version of the Oscars. I'm like, it's not. It's not the Oscars because it's not peer voted. That's the whole point of the Oscars. It's voted on by their peers, not fucking you daft cunts. You're not you don't vote on the Oscars because you're not involved. The media don't.
They just want to say that, don't they? Because it's like the ultimate championship.
Well, we're on the board of the Game Awards, which is the gaming's equivalent of Oscars. Like, it's not. Stop saying that. And the reason why they say that is because it's the most high profile one. That's what they mean. But as I said, the only reason it's high profile is because it's fucking littered with trailers and showcases and marketing of the fucking Muppets. So we agree it's peer voted. That's good. I'm assuming we're saying no trailers, no marketing affiliation whatsoever. That's completely gutted. I don't want people up there selling their next game. We don't want that cash coming. Even if it means that we can't get, I don't know, someone famous in like Dermot O'Leary to host it. We haven't got the money for that. Does he still do that gig? I don't know. He must do.
I think so, yeah. The last I saw him was on This Morning. So
Graveyard.
Yeah, the graveyard. So I think, you don't want it to become a great big PR event. Like, I think that's the worst thing, because you want it to focus on what people have done, not what is upcoming from others.
Yeah, I agree. That's really the only points we've got. I think that's it. I don't think it's got to be any more complicated than that. I'm not saying GDC and DICE are perfect, but you can read through who's on the board of most of these and the process and decide for yourself whether it's good or bad. But I tell you, it's a shite site better than sending off opinions for these various media outlets. And if you want your purity, get up your fucking streaming YouTube on February the 15th and watch the DICE Awards, and then come back and tell me about how exciting that was, because just be honest with yourself and you can admit it wasn't. And then you understand why you're always talking about the fucking Game Awards. Sick of it. Anyway, we'll have this again when GDC do their nominees. Do a rerun. See if the audience notice. Right. Close down this episode with, let's talk gaming resolutions.
Okay.
So this is more about how we plan to tackle this year. Won't be as busy, I don't think. I want to know if there's anything in your locker what you're planning to change, because you've been on a bit of a journey anyways, trying to play different games that you hadn't previously necessarily got involved with. I think you've enjoyed that process mostly. I'll start just to give you some time to let that brain warm up and think about what he could do, or maybe even continue from last year. But I've got like a little roadmap I put out. I've got a little spreadsheet. I just want to commit to that roadmap now and not be beholden to the release date. So here's an example. I'd be playing something 2 weeks out. There'll be another game coming that I wanted to play on day one. Let's say it was Spider-Man 2. That's coming out and I'm playing... Let's say I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3. What would happen is I would never finish Baldur's Gate 3 in time, and therefore I wouldn't play Spider-Man on day one. I wouldn't buy it. I'd wait until I finished Baldur's Gate 3 4 weeks later, and then I'd say, well, you know what, I'm not going to play Spider-Man because I don't feel like I should be paying full price for it because it's not day one anymore. So I'm going to remove that ridiculousness from the process, and if I can't play the game on day one because another project is overrun, I will just buy it and have it there waiting so I'm ready to start then, rather than going right now I'm finger up arse just picking something random out the air. I want to try and commit to what my plans are, and obviously I'll keep in mind that, you know, if there's any big blowers, technical issues, or the game's just a mess, then absolutely I'll pivot. But I'm going to look to buy the game day one and just have it ready if I need to, or if it's on a subscription service, obviously I won't have to do that. That might mean I don't play that game for a couple of weeks until I finish the current game, because I've left things too long before and then never gone back to them and then regretted it. It's a reason why I thought I was going to play it on and got excited for it, and I should just try and commit to that. So we'll see how that goes, because I will be looking at those sales thinking I could just wait 3 months for the summer sale and hope it pops up. But if I've already got it, it's out of my hands, I've done it, and I can just play it as soon as everyone's finished. Yeah. That's what I'm going to try and
depends. I think it depends on what sort of year you've got, because if we look at last year, when there was a lot coming out, a lot to play, like, it's costly, especially these days with £70 games on release, right? So I think that's the right attitude to take. You got to look at it and you go, how desperate am I to play it? And I think sometimes you can fall into a trap of just playing something because it's current as well, when you're not 100% into it. So I think there's a lot of factors that you've got to take into account. But if you know there's something that you're going to want to play imminently, I think you're right. Yeah, just buy it and play it. You know, obviously, if you can afford it and you are capable, I'm not saying you're poor, but I'm saying generically speaking to the audience as well. If there's something you know you want to play, buy it, have it there and play it when you're ready. I think that's the right thing to do.
Don't be dictated by... This is why I don't like the subscriptions, because it kind of dictates to me what I should and shouldn't be playing. Got to make use of it. I want to just take back control and be like, no, there's a reason why I've decided this. That's what I'm going to do. So for example, Q1's basically sorted for me. I've got Cyberpunk 2077 plus that Phantom Liberty expansion, which is built in. I think it's called the Ultimate Edition. So I've started that. Then we've got Persona 3 Reload coming early February. Late February, we've got Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. That'll take me through to through the end of March, I think. So that's what I'm penciling in. If that means Cyberpunk, I finish mid-February, and I don't start Persona 3 until mid-February, and therefore I don't get to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth until mid-March, then that's fine. Whereas previously, I would miss the kind of release for Persona 3 Reload, find something else in the interim to play, then go to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth day one, and then never go back to Persona 3 Reload. Whereas now it's kind of like, if it needs to be pushed back, it does. It's not the end of the world. Trying to get in that zeitgeist day one, you can just be sitting there waiting. No skin off my nose.
Yeah, makes sense.
Anything from you? Is it Metroidvanias all ahead? You can try and play 5 Metroidvanias over the next year.
I don't know. I just think
Stop playing that Destiny. Got to stop playing that Destiny. That could be one. Give something up. I
think basically I used to kind of be dictated by what other people were playing, like what multiplayer games people are playing, all that kind of stuff.
The Division DLC.
Well, I do need to be forced through that. I do, and then it's fucking consigned to the bin, and so is that Xbox after that, I think. But basically, I'm just going to play whatever I want to play when I want to play it, and I think that's pretty much a continuation of, where I've been in the past sort of year or 18 months. I've given Warzone or the latest Warzone a gun. It's just not. I've just got no real interest in doing that cycle.
Do you have people squabbling after you though, saying, "Oh, jumping on Warzone"? You're like,
no, there's no one. It's kind of just like, I mean, years ago it used to be a case of getting there first before the party's full. Nowadays, there's always like you got a few
like
people
Hickson frozen out.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the thing is, it's kind of like, even if it was like that, I'd just shrug my shoulders at it and play something else. Like, I'm really bored of that, I think is a way to put it. So there's nothing that's kind of like topical in that sort of multiplayer space. I've kind of got the luxury of being able to play different things if I want to. And I think that's pretty much where I am. I mean, I've committed to my brother that he's been on at me for ages to play RuneScape with him. So I've kind of been dragged into that, but it's not, I've kind of dabbled with it a bit in the past, and it's kind of an interesting introduction to an MMO RPG style game that I haven't really got that heavily into. So putting a bit of time into that. Still a bit of Rocket League, bit of Destiny, Spider-Man's lurking, started Super Mario Wonder, so that's underway. So it's basically playing a few different bits, going to try and do a few different nights a week of playing something different and just see what crops up and play stuff when I fancy playing it. And if I don't fancy playing something, I won't play it. And I think that's pretty much where I am
Division
with stuff.
2 DLC.
Yeah, I don't want to play it, so I ain't playing it. Like, it's like, yeah, but if I had
you bought it for me.
I know, but I didn't expect it to be as shit as it is.
It wasn't that bad, was it?
It was. I don't know whether it's just because we played it hot on the tails.
We're done
but
with it.
It's just a bit shallow, isn't it? It really is shallow. Like, it's not what I was expecting in terms of like change of environment. The fact that you can't. I think it's a completely separate world where you're sort of completely isolated off of everything you've just done.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the most disappointing DLCs I've ever played.
Might kick into gear when we get to the back end of it. We're over halfway through it.
I know.
It's 4 hours left, I reckon, in my head.
Yeah. I reckon it's something like that. I don't think there's a lot.
No.
But I think
I'll force that issue.
Yeah. And then, to be honest, that's the only reason I think why this Xbox still sitting there is because that's on it. And then once that's done, that's good riddance and
goodbye.
Firmly away from it. But yeah, so I think overall it's just a continuation of where I've been. I'll just see what intrigues me as and when it crops up and play some stuff when I fancy it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think more people could do that and not get snarled up in these day one discussions.
It's tricky. It's not ideal. Like, that approach absolutely wouldn't work for you, where you play way more stuff than I do. I think that requires like, I can jump a lot of the stuff that I play. I can jump on, play it for a bit, and jump off, and then like it's very stop start in nature. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the online stuff, Destiny, you could jump on. Like anything I'm playing, generally I could just jump on for a bit and jump off. Whereas you tend to play stuff that requires a bit more continuity and
I don't know if they necessarily require continuity, but that's just the habit I've got into, is just starting something and finishing it, because I just lose track of the amount of times I've gone back to a game and I can't remember the buttons and what's happening with the story. Like, that's what I used to do. And I think, what? That's why going back to DLC's hard. I mean, I've been on at that for fucking months now, but that's why they're difficult when they leave such a big gap, because you kind of get into it and you're like, I'm rusty as fuck here. I don't know what's occurring.
I agree.
So
I think it's better to play stuff like that. Like, if I was playing God of War, you play God of War.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I mean, Adkins is the opposite to me now. He just buys and plays 10 hours of this, 5 hours of that, 15 hours, 60 hours of this, and it's still not. It's like, that gives me just crippling anxiety thinking about all that.
Yeah. The thing is, I think we've said before, like, I'm quite happy if I don't like something, just to bin it. And, I think it's, I tend to, when I buy games, I'll buy, unless they're really awful, I would buy it and play it. Like, there's games that I buy, I know I'm going to want to play and complete. Like, I like completing games, but there's some games where I'll just go, I just want to mainline it. Or there's some games where I'll get into a little bit of the side stuff. And there's some games like Assassin's Creed or something where I'll pick a load of the stuff that I do want to do and leave the shit that I don't. And I'm always comfortable with doing that.
Yeah.
I'm fine with whatever approach I want to take. And I'm also okay with leaving something for a while and then going, right, I'll come back to it.
Yeah.
It just depends on your approach, but I couldn't sit there and just play 5 hours, buy something, pay 70 quid, play 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 hours, and then just leave it. Like, he always used to be a completionist, which is what's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, he does, to be fair to him, he does get back to them, usually. Like, he will eventually get back to them and do them, but I've done that for years and, just stopped, because I was like, I don't need to be. Also, if you look at the cost benefit, like, you're just buying stuff that's rotting for months, if not years, and you could have just bought that the following year for half the price. But even games I'm not enjoying, quote unquote, I think at a base level I still am. Like, there's just something about picking up a controller and doing something in any game, no matter how bad it might be, that's just still fascinating to me. So even if I'm like, this is fucking cack or whatever it might be, the fact that I'm still playing a video game is just enough for me to normally get through it. It's this weird, like, baseline enjoyment. I mean, there would be exceptions. Like, if it's really like god awful, kept crashing, technical things like that. But then that's why we've got these reviewers out there, hopefully tipping us off, so we don't get snarled up in those ones. But
filtering out the toss.
Yeah, what's considered a bad game? Like, a classic example was Callisto Protocol, considered a bad video game, boring, dull, linear, all this sort of stuff. But I was like, I'm having fun just interacting with this product, and that was it. That was enough.
Sometimes, like, as you say, sometimes I quite like. I've said this before about, like, Call of Duty. There's something about a simplicity sometimes to a game that don't resonate with a reviewer or a critic, that resonates with a player. And sometimes it's that rawness and the sometimes it can get boring, and I think there's a right length to things and all that kind of stuff plays into it. But sometimes I feel like those sort of games, you can sort of zone out a bit. It requires 80%, 70% of your brain power and effort. Like, and I think I quite appreciate those games where I don't have to really think about it or play it in a certain way to get to an ending. And I think sometimes those games don't resonate with the critics as well. But as a gamer, you still appreciate the gameplay and the environment, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like I said,
Destiny is an example, right? I was playing Destiny the other week, and I just looked around. I went, "This environment looks really good."
Yeah.
Like, and it doesn't ever get any credit for how good the environments look. Everyone just craps on it for its story or whatever it is, or its mechanics, its content. But sometimes it's just nice to be in a game and just go, "Oh, I like this. Like, this looks really cool."
Yeah.
I just think that's something that we sometimes forget.
Yeah, I agree. The trouble is with the review process is that they're also there, I'd say, by their own arrogance, as like a consumer advice product. Is it worth the money being paid type angle, which is fine, but I still think time invested is more important than money invested. Without the few exceptions that rock up, £600 game pops out. That's obviously a different conversation. But generally, if you can afford to buy it, pick the stuff that you're going to be spending your time on. Don't worry too much about it. And if you are worried about the price, as we always say, just fucking wait, because it'll be half price in half a year, and then you'll have a better version of it, and you'll have paid less money, and you won't feel as aggrieved. Or it'll land on a subscription service near you. Who knows? These bloody services.
And the key is in the name. They're called a critic. So they're there to pick out the things that are right and wrong. But
they're picking out all the right things. A Prince of Persia, it seems, didn't want to pick out anything wrong. So, are they not just advocates?
Game advocates, yeah.
Some of them are. Anyway, that'll do for this part of the podcast. As usual, we're going to transition into some game impressions. I'm going to stick to whatever order I put here, when we started recording this. So we've got Little Nightmares Complete Edition. So this would be sort of part 1, because there's actually a Little Nightmares 2 Enhanced Edition that I played through as well, which will be coming in a matter of weeks, I would assume, unless something goes terribly wrong with the recording. So Little Nightmares, I played through that. This is all in preparation for the upcoming Little Nightmares 3. And I thought I'd go back to the beginning. Had it on PlayStation Plus, but then I bought the Enhanced Edition for about £6 to get the DLC, all this sort of garbage. But long and short of it is, you'll have me talking to you, giving my views on Little Nightmares Complete Edition. So stick around for that through this short transition. And as always, we will see you on the other side. Here we are then, back with some game impressions to close out this edition of Idle Game Chat. Got myself apps here, and the resident referee, Logan, who will be asking the poignant questions about Little Nightmares on PlayStation 5, originally a PS4 game. No native PS5 edition, in fact. But I think they did do one of those patches where it recognises you're on PS5 via backwards compat and goes, right, we'll boost that frame rate and whatever else we can be bothered. But the game came out in 2017, so it's a bit of an old one.
Yeah.
That I've gone and delved back into. Anyway, we'll hand over to yourself to do the needful, and we'll see what we can dig out about Ickle Nightmares. Oh, Ickle Nightmares Complete Edition, I should say, because I played the DLCs. There were 3 little add-on packs that came with it, plus some like cosmetic to it, but there was like an actual expansion pass known as the Secrets of the Maw. So that was included in my purchase. That'd be the whole lot. Complete edition.
A little Brucey bonus included as part of that, by the sounds of it. So when you sent me this saying, right, review required of Little Nightmares, my first response was, why now? Oh, that was the first thing I thought, is why? Because I knew it was an old game. I mean, we play things here when we want, as we've discussed many a time, but it's just a random one I didn't expect to crop up, and I had assumed that you had already played Little Nightmares.
Well, that's the thing. It should have already been played, and it's sort of correcting just an old scab that I never got round to doing. I just sort of ignored it when it came out, and I did want to. I was like, I'll play that at some point. Kept kicking the can down the road, and then before you know it, half a decade's gone by, and you're on the brink of the third one coming out, and you think, right, do I want to catch myself up? Because I knew they're not particularly long games. Like this entire complete edition, including the expansions, took me, I think, 7 hours. Main game took probably just over half of that, so they're not taxing in that sense. And I had no real excuse not to have played them. It was just one of these moments where I was like, I've got a bit of runway, like a week or two. These fit in perfectly to that because you can sort of hammer them out in 2 or 3 sessions. Ideally, that's the plan anyway. And then you're sort of done with them. You're like, well, let's gear ourselves up for Little Nightmares 3, which is inbound in 2024. So I've actually played the second one as well. Worth noting that that's already been played as we record this. We'll be doing a follow-up for Little Nightmares 2 to get those opinions, but this is solely on that complete edition.
Yes. So I just, before we did this, I had to do a little refresh on it because I was like, I keep getting confused between this and another one, which is like in black and white and a little spider with a little thing that gets you.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that one's
Limbo.
called. Yeah, for some reason I always get
Yes.
the two conflated, and they are two completely different games.
Definitely, you can tell they've looked at that and gone, let's just set it completely in like a horror genre and use that as a target. Because Limbo, I've played that, very, very good. Very much enjoyed that game. It's pretty old now, actually. And then Playdead's follow-up, which was Inside, some would say even better. But this is from Tarsier Studios, who I must say I hadn't been familiar with before. And I immediately put the two and two together, and I think that's what hooked me. I was like, this is sort of like a Limbo horror type game. And Limbo is pretty horrific, actually. It's not particularly roses.
Unsettling.
Yeah, and this was similar. So I thought, well, you know what? Let's go for it. Let's get this out of the way. We've got a couple of weeks, bit of runway. You can do worse than play little games like this, and I'll see where I end up with them. And Little Nightmares Complete Edition was installed, and we went off and played it.
So I've actually seen a little bit. I don't know if it was Little Nightmares or Little Nightmares 2 that I've seen, but I've seen a little bit of it streamed before. And it kind of piqued my interest a little bit because it's, as you say, a bit weird. It's a bit left field. It's a little bit different to the run-of-the-mill game you'd play. So what was it about Little Nightmares specifically that you're... What piqued your interest in this game? Reviews or
not really? Because the reviews I think are like high 70s, which is no disaster, but it's certainly not. Oh, I must go out and play this. It was more that I had played Limbo. I don't think I'd played Inside at the time. I'll check when that came out, but I think that was after this. And this setting, just the idea of perhaps something like this, but more horror, just was enough, really, because I do like these puzzle platformers. I'll say that what's this, 2016 apparently. So actually, yeah. So Inside had been out as well at this time. So I played Limbo, Inside, and then this seemed like a good follow up. But like I said, clearly something didn't connect overly because I didn't get round to it till 6 years later. So it clearly didn't scratch the itch enough. And
No.
So they were always on the backlog for that reason, or the old menu, and I just thought these have got to be worth a go. And really, what made me do it this time, whilst we're recording this, was that they've announced the third, and I thought I could catch up here, and it's going to be low effort really in terms of time. And if I like it, I'm sort of set up for when Little Nightmares 3 arrives in 2024. I can dive in with 2 feet. You know, perhaps the day one, or if it's on a Game Pass or a PS Plus or whatever, and give it a go. Because the idea of it just spoke to me without even setting hands on the controller. I thought, this looks like something I'm going to enjoy if I just sit down and make a conscious effort to play it, rather than going for all the blockbusters all the time. And when you're in between releases, these are perfect little palate cleansers, because they don't, either way, they'll cleanse that palate.
In the right or the wrong way. So yeah, this obviously it's a horror-ish game. I wouldn't say it's like, I don't know, from what I saw, I wouldn't say it's like jumpy horror, although I think there is a bit of that kind of goes on, but it's more just I don't know, I just found it sort of like all the visuals and the characters and that just kind of a bit of an unsettling sort of look and feel to it. And do you want to just give an overview of the store page if you've got it up there?
I've got it here. We got Little Nightmares. See if we've got a. No, it doesn't. It lets you change editions sometimes, but it's this played it on PS5 as I said, but this is what we got here. Game and legal info. Immerse yourself in Little Nightmares and confront your childhood fears. Help 6 escape the Maw, a vast, mysterious vessel inhabited by corrupted souls looking for their next meal. As you progress on your journey, explore the most disturbing dollhouse, offering a prison to escape from and a playground full of secrets to discover. I think they're trying to be clever with words there, and it's just coming out like a dog's dinner. I mean, I'm not the best at reading this stuff off. Should hire someone for this, but They're trying to be too cute with it there, I think. Reconnect with your inner child to unleash your imagination and find the way out. I mean, that is some dross.
A lot of the time, these things are just a load of word salad. But it's always interesting to see how they position the game, because I thought it was kind of like an escape style game, but I didn't know whether I just got the wrong gist.
You're never inherently told anything. It's one of these, and this is in line with Limbo and Inside and these puzzle platformers from it's not even really a 2D game, because you can actually scale up and down. It's got some depth on some of the platforming, but it's from that perspective, a fixed sort of camera on the side, so it gives off that effect. But as with Limbo and as with Inside, you're not told anything. There's very little. There's no conventional storytelling. There's no cutscenes. I don't think there's any dialogue in it at all. You're just kind of observing what's going on, looking around at your surroundings. You're aware that you're in a hostile area, so the idea of escaping absolutely is on your mind. I think that's quite handy just to have that set up, because you don't need anything else than that, really. You just want to get out of there. That's enough. Sometimes that's enough. You just want to get out of this hellhole because you're aware that it's not particularly
welcoming.
It's not welcoming, and it's
not a place to be.
It's hostile. You get your fucking guts ripped out. Well, you don't really get that, but you know what I'm saying. You end up dying and whatnot, and that's all you get. And as to what happens and what this place is, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't give you a clear answer, but that's the same for definitely for Inside, which kind of leaves certain elements up to the player to interpret. And you can go and read a Wikipedia page and find out the full click, but I don't think that ever is spelled out quite as black and white as it's written down on a page. But yeah, there's the narrative is one of those ones where it's observing only and experiencing kind of what's going on. And because it's set in horror, there's all sorts of weird shit going on, so none of it really makes any sense, and they can get away with literal murder, I guess, in terms of what they bung into it.
I was going to say, you're basically figuring it out like real time.
And even
the character and you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you're not figuring much out either. You're just aware you need to get out of here. And let's get away from these fucking goblins trying to grab you or whatever they're doing.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and I guess you can probably go into some of this without, you're always careful, but I don't think you really get much in the way of like weapons, or it's literally just a figure a way out, move stuff around, open a door, like
correct,
all that kind of good stuff, right? So there's that feeling of constant vulnerability, I suppose, that is not constant vulnerability, but a vulnerability that you're not able to take these guys on. And obviously there's a lot of things that go on around that. But do you want to touch on the gameplay a bit and the things that you liked about Little Nightmares?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing as soon as I immediately booted it up was that it really does look pretty good, even all these years on. I mean, it's not over egging what it's trying to do, but the atmosphere it's aiming for is definitely achieved. You can just wander around the very first levels, and you're like, yeah, this is gloomy, this is haunting, and they've done that part very, very well. And that's not always easy. I've certainly played more recent games that have lacked, in my opinion, a bit of atmosphere, and this definitely has that. So that's a tick in the box there. The general puzzles are decent, I'd say, for the most part. Now, there's some parts of the DLC which I have some problems with, and there are definitely... The game gets in its own way. I'm struggling not to go down the negative path immediately here, because the more I talk about it, the more it's bringing back these memories. But what I'll say is that I enjoyed working through the puzzles and figuring out the solution. What I did not enjoy was having to run back through the same room to redo a puzzle because I jumped slightly off kilter and missed the jump and died. So the checkpointing for me throughout was a constant nuisance.
Interesting.
And I don't know the point in making me spend time running into a room that takes 10 seconds to run through, climbing up something and doing the jump again. Put me up where the jump is, and if I keep blowing it, that's my own problem. But
yeah.
There's things like that are a bit of a stinger. But I like the puzzle solving part of it. It's just that sometimes if you got it wrong and it ended in a high fall and you died, you were shit out of luck there. I don't know if you remember that Far Changing Tides that we've reviewed many months ago, and it's a similar type of deal. It's a puzzle platformer basically. That didn't have any fall damage at all or death from it. So if you fell off something, you just got back up there. Whereas this does, you sort of snap your legs and that's the end of it. So you've got that element. You've then got what are the obligatory sort of stealth sections where there are bigger enemies in the room getting on with their daily tasks, and you've got to get from A to B. Sometimes you've got to get from A to B to get back to C, which is near A, like grabbing an object, grabbing a key. And that's usually under the guise of being stealthy. Like
my favourite.
Yeah, you would love this. Hiding behind things, timing your particular runs and making sure you're not spotted, and if you are spotted there's very little room for recovery. Not that you can't, because I did a couple of times, but generally you get seen, you're in absolute trouble. So that's another element they like to use. The best element for me are these, like what I would call a chase scene. So something will happen, it will trigger an enemy chasing you, and the idea is not to hide, the idea is to go from left to right, going through multiple rooms, jumping over things on the fly, grabbing onto things. Like that's really dynamic and really exciting. The problem is there's very few of them in the game, and when you've got that level of strength sort of sitting there underutilized, that was something when I got to the back end I was like, they definitely could have used more of that, less stealth and better checkpoints for absolutely. But it is what it is. That's
just
what I
a
will
question on that parallel between stealthing through and getting caught versus being chased. Like, is there did you go into some rooms sometimes thinking, do I need to be stealthy here? Or did you always approach it with stealth? Like, are those transitions between chase and stealth obvious, like with what is expecting? Or sometimes you trying to stealth and think, hang on a minute, am I always going to get chased by this fella?
No,
like, is there a bit of that? Or?
It signals it quite well in most cases. Like if you come into a room and someone's already there dawdling around, chances are it's not a chase scene. What will typically happen is you would have got past an enemy, perhaps in a stealth section, and then they'll come barreling through the door whilst you're just getting on with doing something else. And then it's like, oh shit, we got to go. And the camera will sort of pan out and it will slightly tilt, looking towards the right-hand side, which is usually the direction you're heading. And you'll see objects sort of moving around. You're like, okay, I'll get what I've got to do here, and I've got to get on with it quickly. So, yeah, that I could see where that could be a bit of a blow, but fortunately, in this instance, they didn't fall down that trap, and it's quite clear when you're supposed to get your skates on and when doing that will end in immediate death.
Yeah, I assumed that they would do, but I can imagine that would be a frustration if you're like trying to stealth it, and then sort of like 20 minutes later you get through and they're chasing you anyway. You think, oh fucking hell! Like,
yeah, there's none of that really. It's quite deliberate, and they separate those zones up so that you don't spend half hour like scrabbling through a room only to be seen anyway, and it triggers the chase scene. It'll always be a sort of separate room that you've gone in where you're on your own, and they'll come in, or something will trigger it in some way.
You think, here we go. Coming to get me, sort of thing. You sort of sense it in your soul. You go, it's too quiet in here, something's coming.
Yeah, the problem with that stealth stuff is that it's just not very good, I don't think. Like,
never is, mate. It never is good. I don't care what people say.
Wow. I mean, the irritating thing was that I thought you could sit there for 5 minutes and watch the routine of what the enemies were doing, figure it out, and go, right, do that. It doesn't. It's all based on where the player is. So, say someone's doing something nearer you, like I was expecting them to walk up to the far end of the room, then I'll be able to sneak to the next bit, wait for them to come back and go past. They will not move until you move. Almost, they almost like have different routines that they will only kick in once you've gone far enough along the screen. I found that frustrating because that's just an artificial way of making them always in your grill, rather than it being a natural task that they're carrying out. It's like, no, the AI knows that I am now in this section, so therefore they're going to come wandering around this side of the table and be there and be a nuisance for you. So that, and also the frustration of stealth is just at its kind of peak here, because it's instant. It's almost instant death. Whereas a typical survival and a horror game in particular, you'll have some level of escape, and obviously this has next to no combat in it. So it puts itself in a difficult position by utilising that, but the alternative probably wasn't an option to them. So yeah, I sort of felt like they could have done that better. And again, the checkpoints will come back to haunt you if you blow midway through those stealth sections. And again, you think, oh, I'm getting tired of this, and it's not even a long game. It can be a tiresome routine to go through. So stealth sections could be improved and should be improved. And then the worst of all the sections, and again, there's only a handful of these. These are what I call thread the needle. All right, where you have to direct your way through a very specific path, because as I said, it's not complete 2D. It's got some depth to it in a lot of the levels, and if you go an inch too far, you'll get snatched by an enemy. If you go an inch too far this way, you'll get snatched by an enemy, which is fine in practice, but on your 25th try, you think, what is going on? Why is it so particular about this? Give me some level of leeway. And I got stuck on one of those sections and I was pulling my fucking hair out at it.
Oh, I would have loved to be a fly on the wall for that. I bet that was...
I don't know what this is offering. In my head, I was thinking we've had a couple of great chases. Why is this not a chase? Why is this not a run, a gauntlet, across and over? And it's like, no, the way to do it is to go very slowly and just make sure that you're pixel perfect almost. They really, I think, made that particular part overzealous. I will pause there on the negativity and just say, I think a lot of the people's experience of this will be completely personal, because someone may well have got through that stage, no problem at all. And also, on the flip side, there'll be people that got stuck on puzzles that I just figured out as soon as I walked in the room, and they'll be sitting there pulling their hair out going, what does this game want me to do? So these types of games, more than others, have I think everyone will have a unique perspective on it, depending on how far they got, where they got stuck, where the pain points were. And I will call that out just to defend it slightly. But I do think overall, execution-wise, it's lacking. And when I finished the core game, I was like, that weren't ideal. And I was like, I've got 3 DLC packs here to go. Can this rectify it? And well,
so when you say execution, like, what would you say was the biggest frustration then? Like checkpointing, or is it the puzzles? Was it that bit that you tried 25 times? Like, or is it just a combination of those things together that
it's the combination?
It sounds like it soured the experience.
Yeah, it's the combination of those elements being on top of each other sometimes.
Yeah.
Because the bad checkpointing compounds a frustrating part of the game that you're stuck on immediately. And a hard part of the game will lead you to hit more difficult checkpoints because you'll be failing more. So, I mean, you could tie it all back to the checkpointing, because I feel like if the checkpointing was just a little bit more kind, it would alleviate the stress. Because at that point, I don't know why these sort of things happen in games. Like, what the obsession is of making a game which is supposed to be tension-filled and stressful at some point, but putting you in situations where you could die a dozen times quite quickly, and then all the tension's gone at that point. It's replaced with frustration, because you're redoing the same parts over and over. If it's a particularly long segment where it's multiple parts, and then you die on the third part out of 4, and then you go back to the first part on a bad checkpoint, that just gets up your arse. I don't know what the obsession is with making players sort of earn some of these sort of wins through the screens. It felt like sometimes they could have just put a checkpoint halfway through and it would have eased a lot of the burden. And it's always that question of, don't you want games to play themselves? I was like, well, no, I don't want to play themselves, but I don't want to have to be running through the same boring corridor just to redo a part, which is requiring a very specific input, and then I'm dying immediately. Like, just put me at the input. I don't mind that. Put me right at the beginning of that. Don't make me fucking pull a fucking chair up and drag that halfway across the screen, climb up, go across the table halfway, then hit the.
You just want to get straight back into it, don't you? You want to go, fuck that up. I just want to.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. I just want to get straight back into it, and it just annoys you that you have to do the
fucking setup,
fucking around and the setup to then think I'm probably just going to fail this again.
Yeah, that's
and
the
it's
thing.
not even the fact that you have to do it twice. It's the knowledge that you think I might have to do this 10 times or 15.
The thing is with these with Little Nightmares, because it's a puzzle platformer. You've always got in the back of your head, is this the right way even? Am I dying here all the time? Because actually there's a simpler solution that I've talked myself out of or not seen. So you go through things a dozen times, you think there must be something else in the room. So you try it, you then spend 5-10 minutes fucking about of another chair halfway across the room and realise you can't do it. And then you're back to square one going, I've got to run this fucking gauntlet again. It's not ideal for anyone.
Yeah, it's like, I always think to boss fights, like I can't remember a specific game, but it's always satisfying in boss fights and things like that, where if you die, it puts you back really quickly and really close. Like it doesn't make you go through all the boss phases again and start from the beginning. Like, that pisses me off because it's like I feel like I've already ticked the achievement box for it. I've done that hard part. Just because I haven't linked it all together, it doesn't mean I should get punished and have to do it all together. Yeah, you just don't want that additional stress, do you? But is that? I mean, we've kind of blended what you like with what you didn't like. I guess there, you liked the art style, you like the principle. Yeah, you didn't much care, or you felt like the execution soured that a bit. Is there anything specific that you wanted to mention, I guess, that we haven't discussed about already before we move it along?
The free DLC packs I will call out separately.
Yes, sorry, that's probably where I won't be.
Because it's got an opportunity to redeem itself here, because what I liked about the DLC in general is that they're quite different from the main game. Like the first DLC packs got a lot of water-based puzzles and floating bits and pieces, which you don't see a great deal of in the main game. So I like that. The second one dives deeply in and has this sort of multi-room solution for one particular puzzle and gives you little partners to work alongside to help out, and that's not in the main game at all. So it's all introducing almost like new mechanics throughout it. So it's tracking really well. I was like, this is going to recover at this rate. And then I hit the third DLC, which is just a disgrace to humanity. And I was like, what are we doing here?
Hold on.
So it went good, great, disgrace.
What do you mean a disgrace to humanity? In what ways?
It's just a shit idea. What it tries to do is, because it's the last one, it clearly thinks, right, let's ramp it up a bit, and you have things coming at you that you can get rid of by shining basically a torch on them. And rather than that being like a small part of the game, that becomes a big part of the game, and it gets more and more of those little cunts fucking chasing you down. Then you've got to fucking open things whilst they're coming out of the woodwork, and you're like, well, look, I see what you're trying to do. But also, I did get really stuck on one puzzle, and it was just, that's just one of those things. I spent about an hour on this one puzzle, and I was like, this is just toilet. So that really soured it as well. But generally, that last one just isn't very good. They try and, I think in an attempt to make it this all singing and dancing crescendo and, ending to go off on, they again just overcook it. Heads up asses. Let's make this the bombastic finale that we want. And it's like, well, you didn't need to do that. I didn't want that. I quite enjoyed the pace of the first one and the second DLC, and you've then crapped all over it with the third one on a game that was already struggling. So you've kind of undone all the good work just there. Also, the DLC itself, I had more glitches than I did in the main game. I got stuck in a falling animation. Worse animation than the Division falling. They were like, I couldn't move. I had to reset the game. I had things disappearing. I mentioned the second one, you kind of use the aid of other creatures around you to help you. Trying to get them to do what you need to do, like help you push something, for example. They're supposed to all come along and like, two of them would do it, and the other one would just stand there, thumb up arse. There's no way of communicating with these fucks. So it just started to grate on me. I was already in a bad mood. So, unfortunately, it could have recovered itself quite well, but that third one just completely unravelled for me. And that may well have been because I was at the end of my tether with it anyway. And knowing it was the final one, then getting just stuck on some puzzle, which again, completely personal. People will roar through that and go, what were you even getting snarled up about? But the thing, the trouble with puzzle games are that if the user doesn't understand what the parameters are, they're going to really struggle to get it, aren't they? If they think the combination is made of 4 items, it's actually made of 5, you ain't ever going to get close to doing it because there's no feedback. That's
I
what
love the way
happens.
that I honestly, I don't even have to do anything at this point here. I just have to almost press the button and run. Is how I've.
Oh, I'll tell you another thing. So I mentioned about this torch that you use to defend yourself and keep enemies at bay. They don't like the light. It's a classic sort of trope, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some bright spark. So you press circle to turn the torch on and off.
Yeah.
Fine. Some bright spark also decided that they would fucking map it to the R3 button being clicked in.
Okay.
So you use the R3 button to aim. I don't know about you, but I have a constant habit of when I'm aiming and trying to move, it will click it in by accident. So that fucker went off every time, didn't it, when the pressure got on? I'll tell you what, they knew that was fucking shit, because in the second one, it ain't mapped there anymore. Someone told them. It's a shit idea, isn't it? Let's attach something that can turn on and off that will save your life to a fucking analog stick that you need to move around on.
So the problem, I assume, was you were turning it off when it should have stayed on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, for a long time, I couldn't even figure out what was happening. I wondered whether the torch, again, because they don't fucking tell you nothing.
Is it running out of battery?
Is it running out? Is it running out of battery? Have I got to hold? Have I got to keep directing it on a certain? Can I let? No, and I figured it out that it was that. And I don't know. That's the problem I've always had with a lot of games. Anything mapped to that R3 will inevitably get pressed at some point. But
I don't like those buttons being there. I preferred it when they were just analogs.
Yeah,
it doesn't really work well for anything because it's like my car, right? It's got a switch, so you have to turn the switch on the same key, the same stalk as the indicator.
Yeah.
So every time I switch the indicator on, the lights come on because who thought of this? It's ridiculous.
Multi-purpose, they say. No.
It's nonsense because every time you fucking move the stick, you're either turning the light... And it's fine because if you turn him right, you turn the lights on. But if you turn left, you turn them off. And that ain't ideal in the dark. So what are we doing? So yeah, I'm a firm believer that this multi-faceted thing doesn't work, and especially on gaming controllers, as you say. It's like the amount of times in Call of Duty I'd go to move, and I think that's sometimes bound to like melee.
Yeah,
so you like move to the right, and you go like that to like knife someone, and then you can't shoot them because you're in the middle of a knife animation. So that is a particular bugbear of mine, specifically in gaming. So I can understand why that was frustrating.
Yeah.
But
again, it's a shame because actually the DLC, once it's all said and done, ties nicely back into the main game. Gives you a little bit more context, and as a story package, is a nice compliment. But it just doesn't have a consistent enough positive.
The execution
again, it's the execution.
It.
It's just it's sloppy, like I said, in some aspects. Like, just fucking things disappearing randomly. Like, what the hell's happening here? Because the main game's clean as anything. I mean, there's not a lot going on either. I mean, to drag the game through the mud, but it ain't like a fucking open world, is it?
I don't mean to, but I will.
Well,
I absolutely will
saying,
drag it.
How's that not getting picked up somewhere?
Yeah. It's does sound a bit odd. I was surprised actually that it's kind of been crapped on like this, because I know a lot of people were quite excited about Little Nightmares 2. It arrived to some fanfare.
This is Little Nightmares 1.
No. This is what I'm saying. But surely, if people are...
Well, I get what you're saying, yeah. It would have just died a death.
Yeah, and they would have just been like, oh, have they got another one of these? But it was like, oh, like everyone was a bit like, Little Nightmares 2, that's good.
Yeah.
So that's why I referenced that, because, not saying it's a complete and abject utter failure, but I think it's fair to say that based on how this has gone, you didn't much enjoy it at the end of it on reflection.
I wanted to. There's no reason for me not to enjoy this until you get into the nuts and bolts of the game. It just started to slowly but surely show its arse too much, and I was like, I can't be dealing with this arse anymore. Like,
that's fair.
It's a shame, but it is what it is.
So, is there anything else specific now we've absolutely crapped on that DLC that you'd like to call out? I mean, you've touched on like technical problems, but was that a theme, or were they just kind of like one-offs?
No, they were one-offs. Really, that was, and that was, like I said, that was consigned to the DLC pack, the 3 levels, and it was a bit of a strange one. And to be honest, did they affect gameplay? Like, no, a cart suddenly popping in, I knew was there, wasn't really a problem. But the one that did annoy me was when I was trying to get those little fucks to help me, and they weren't.
Yeah.
So that then
because you can't move on.
Can he move it? No. And I was like, again, because you're not really, nothing's really spelled out on how you interact with stuff. You just sort of try by, experiment and see what it works. And yeah, it just became a bit of a. And again, I'm like, am I missing something? Do I need another one of these little shit? I don't know. You sort of start questioning how you've come to this point and what's been missing, and ultimately it was just an input wasn't registering.
Why? Like, what have I not done to not trigger this?
Sure.
Like, yeah.
You can't be having that. Unacceptable.
So if you're good, we'll go to the gallery, shall we?
Yep. Get this in that fucking gallery.
Right. So, obviously we've mentioned it a few times already, but I don't know what order these come out in. It's an unknown. We never know. So, established ranking of bronze to platinum. We know that's there.
Yeah.
We've introduced the bin.
Botchling bin.
Call it? Botchling bin has been introduced in the past couple of these.
That's where you put Hi-Fi Rush.
Did I?
Well, you didn't get a bronze, so it automatically goes. I picked it up from outside. No, I've picked it up from outside and put it in the Botchling bin. Paper put new Pokemon Snap in there by proxy. That's the sort of toot that's gone in there.
Cool, I'll get absolutely
unpacking last year. Hitman, 7 Deadly Sins DLC, more DLC heartache for me. Supraland, I put New World in there. 2 Assassin's Creed Valhalla tutters in there. Middle Earth Shadow of War in there. These are sort of the sort of garbage that's gone in that bin.
So that's now in play. So anything that doesn't get the minimum of a bronze awarded gets put in this bin for further reference. So could this be the first official use of the Botchling bin? I think that's what I'm intrigued to understand. So does it get a bronze or higher, or does it?
It's a difficult taskmaster sometimes, but you sometimes have to be fair to what is being achieved here. So, luckily for Little Nightmares, it gets the honour of being the first one to go in the Botchling bin. Sick of it.
I thought you were going to, for some reason, after slagging it off for 20 minutes, then give it an award. I was like, well,
no. Ain't getting nothing off me, unfortunately. More so that I feel like there's something clearly there, and you execute that you execute that inconsistently on a short game. So if you spend an hour of the game pulling your hair out and it's 3.5 hours long, that's a significant chunk of the entire experience, isn't it?
A third of your experience soured in frustration.
Yeah, so which you can't accept really, and it just needs to be cleaned up. It's clearly a good seed of an opportunity to make something compelling, but Little Nightmares was not it, unfortunately. So put me. So
do you think, without giving anything away too much, that seed perhaps was planted for the next installment? If anyone's got this far, got for a bloody 1.5 hour podcast and 40 minutes of this, and they deserve an insight into where the next one and the sequel could go, in my opinion.
Well, all I'll say is that it clearly planted enough of the seed for someone with money to bankroll the next one. Whether or not it's a good idea, they'll have to wait and
TBC,
to listen to what my thoughts are on Little Nightmares 2. But the only reason I even played Little Nightmares 2, in fact, after this, was because I'd already bought it. I'd already committed to it.
Would you have not?
There's a good chance I would have not bothered, I think.
Would you have done for a bit, but that puts the whole scuppered plan for
free. Well, I'd have gone, what am I missing? If they're behaving like this, then what's the point? Like, if this is going to be more of this, then
I don't want it.
Well, exactly. Then that's what it came down to. But clearly someone felt like it made enough money to bankroll a second one and now bankroll a third one. So clearly it's hitting for some people. And arguably there is something there. Like I said, you might get through the game and not have any problems because you nailed...
I would have problems. I always do. And I wouldn't complete it. I think that's what I would do. I'd get to it and go, this is bullshit, and turn it off and not go back.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely going to be a lot of people, but also for those that got through it perhaps without problems or went into the puzzles and had no problems, didn't get stuck during the thread of the needle, you could probably say to all those arguments that it's actually not a problem. But Most people will hit a wall at some point, and depending on what type of wall you hit, if you start dying, you're then going to be punished further by having to redo just mundane tut just to get back to where you were, and you know that's unforgivable, really.
Yeah,
it ain't fucking Elden Ring, so what we doing?
it certainly ain't.
I think developers confuse like difficulty with. They think that if you make something difficult to execute in terms for the player and what inputs they've got to do, that it makes it somehow scarier. But like I said earlier, it just vacuums any fear out and replaces it with annoyance. And at that point, you're not scared at all.
It makes it even more annoying and frustrating because of the stakes, if you like.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, I've already got to contend with that. Don't make it unnecessarily more difficult than it has to be.
Yeah.
It is a tricky balancing act in these games to get all of that level and right. And I think even some of the better games at this sometimes get it a bit wrong.
Yeah.
But I think on the whole, there'll always be some of these annoying bits in these types of games where it's just tipping you over that edge of what's like bordering frustration, but it's getting that balance right and not overburdening it. As you said, if you're stuck on a puzzle for a third of the time you spend in the game, like that's going to override the experience, right?
Yeah.
And fair enough to do so.
Yeah. It's just, and again, perhaps if I just got through that puzzle and then...
But you didn't there.
But I didn't.
And
That's not
that's
the way
the reality
it works.
of it. And if you didn't... I always like to think, if I'm struggling, I ain't the only one.
No.
Like, I think if I've... I like to think I've got a reasonable brain that can... And the thing is, the game also, I think, has a part to play with these puzzles, right? Because as you go through and you go through the game, it should say and set the seed of this is how the puzzles work and this is how you solve them. And it gradually should move them up in difficulty, but it can't just introduce a mechanic or do something out of nowhere where you've never... It's like that Division 2 where you play and all of a sudden it expects you to do something that it's never, ever expected you to do before. And you go, well, it wasn't even in my train of thought because in the previous 30 hours you've not asked me to do this. So
I'm not doing a fucking Zelda shrine, so what's that doing in there?
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, and it's a blow for me. So the botchling bin for Little Nightmares. Teach it a lesson. Anyway.
Rightly so.
Close down this particular edition of Idle Game Chat. Little Nightmares earns itself a place in the coveted botchling bin. Nothing more for us to say other than thanks for your time and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.